There is a person in your life right now, and they have already decided how far they can push you. They tested it, maybe once, maybe more than once. And based on how you responded, they drew a number in their head. That number is your limit, and they know it better than you do. Today, that changes. Before we go any further, I need to challenge something you were told growing up. You were told that the mature response to disrespect is to rise above it. Be the bigger person. Let it go. Sounds wise, right? But what if that advice was never about your growth? What if it was about other people's comfort? Being the bigger person, the way most people practice it, is just a socially acceptable way of asking you to be quiet so the room doesn't get awkward. Here's what nobody says out loud. Every time you absorb disrespect with a smile, you are not rising above anything. You are teaching people exactly how to treat you. And the lesson they're learning, that you are safe to disrespect. That stops today. Take yourself back to a moment you already know. Work, a family gathering, out with people you thought were your people. Someone says something. It lands wrong, sharp under the surface, even if it was wrapped in a smile. Before your brain processes the words, your body already knows. Chest tightens, jaw locks. Something shifts inside you. Every eye in the room is quietly watching to see what you do next. And you have about 3 seconds. 3 seconds to make a choice most people are completely unprepared for. So what do most people do? Some laugh it off. Make a self-deprecating joke to ease tension they created. Some fire back emotionally. Then spend the next week feeling like they made themselves look worse. And some say nothing. Go home. Lie awake replaying every version of what they should have said. Notice something about all 3 responses. None of them were chosen. They just happened. Because when disrespect catches you off guard, your nervous system takes over. And it was never trained for this. It was trained to survive, not to respond with precision. That's what this video is actually about. Not anger management, not revenge, not winning an argument. How to be so grounded in who you are that when that moment comes, you don't react from panic. You respond from power. Now, before I give you the sequence, I need to show you something invisible. Something happening underneath every act of disrespect. Once you see it, you will never unsee it. Stay with me. Disrespect is almost never spontaneous. It's the second step in a process that started before you noticed. First step, observation. Before someone disrespects you, they watch you. How you respond when things get uncomfortable. How you handle someone else being treated poorly. Whether you laugh along when you shouldn't. How fast you try to smooth things over when the room gets tense. They're reading you, looking for one answer. Does this person have a line? And if they do, where is it? That's what disrespect really is. A measurement attempt, not a bold move. Bold people don't need to test others. It's a calculated move by someone who already did their homework on you and decided the risk is low. That's the invisible part. And here's why it matters. When you understand disrespect is a test, not a statement, you stop taking it as evidence of something about you. You start seeing it as information about them. Their need to measure you tells you something about their insecurity. Their need to find your floor tells you how unstable their own footing is. Secure people don't go around testing others. They don't need to. So next time it happens, before you feel the sting, let one thought land first. You just told me everything I need to know about you. That thought doesn't make you passive. It makes you precise. Because now you're not responding from hurt. You're responding from clarity. Now let's talk about why most people keep losing these moments. One word: reaction. When someone disrespects you, your brain registers it as a threat, not metaphorical, biological. Heart rate up, thinking narrows, body floods with survival energy. And then you're expected to respond with social intelligence, while your nervous system is in full alarm mode. That's not a character flaw. That's biology. But here's the problem. When you react from that state, you hand the other person exactly what they were hoping for. Proof. Proof that the button they pressed lights up, that this approach works on you, and that proof gets filed. When you explode, you show them your fire. When you shrink, you show them your fear. Either way, they leave knowing something about you that you never intended to give them. The goal is not to react better. The goal is to interrupt the reaction entirely and replace it with something they weren't prepared for. A response, calm, deliberate, in control. The difference between a reaction and a response? Who's in charge? Reaction means they're driving. Response means you took the wheel back. Here's exactly how you take the wheel. Most videos on this topic stop here. They say, stay calm, don't react, take the high road. That advice isn't wrong. It's just incomplete, because calm without direction is just silence. And silence without intention is just absence. What I'm giving you now is a sequence, 3 moves that work together like a system. Once you understand them, these moments stop feeling like ambushes. They start feeling like situations you already know how to handle. Move 1, stillness. And I need you to understand the difference between stillness and silence. Most people confuse them. It costs them the moment. Silence is what happens when you shut down. The hit lands and your body just stops. Eyes drop. Posture contracts. Energy leaves your face. The room reads that. They know the hit landed. Stillness is different. Stillness is when you receive the moment without moving. Posture stays. Eyes stay level. Face stays neutral. You don't rush to fill the air. You don't scramble to adjust the energy. You simply become completely, deliberately still. Here's a physical anchor to help you get there. In those first 3 seconds, take 1 breath. But breathe out longer than you breathe in. That single action tells your nervous system you're not under attack. It buys you the gap you need. Keep your gaze soft but steady, just past their shoulder or between their eyes, not staring them down, just present. And what that stillness does to a room, you have to experience to fully understand. It creates pressure, not because of anything you said, because you did nothing. And you did it with total control. When someone throws a move expecting a reaction and gets absolute stillness instead, that move has nowhere to go. It floats back toward them. Suddenly, they're the ones standing in the energy they created. They start filling the silence themselves, over-explaining, adding a follow-up that lands flat, reaching for a nervous laugh that nobody gives them. The footing they were standing on assumed you would flinch. You didn't. Now they're off balance. You didn't fight for that. You just refused to give up yours. 3 seconds. That's all stillness requires. 3 seconds of deliberate calm that says more than any comeback ever could. Move 2. The question. From that stillness, you ask a question, not a comeback, not a correction, not a lecture about your feelings. A question. Calm, direct, delivered at about half the speed most people expect. Something like this. That landed a certain way. Was that intentional? Or softer? Sorry, help me understand that? Or simply, say that again. I want to make sure I heard you correctly. Notice what these questions are not. They're not aggressive. They don't attack. They don't escalate. But they do something very specific. They drag the moment into full light. Most disrespect lives in the gray zone. Plausible deniability. The gap where someone can always say just joking or you're too sensitive. Your question closes that gap. It pulls the moment out of the shadows and asks them to stand in it publicly. And here's what most disrespectful people are genuinely not prepared for: a spotlight. They were counting on you to either explode emotionally, which gives them deniability, or let it slide quietly, which gives them permission. You did neither. You stayed completely calm and simply held a mirror up to what they just did. That combination, stillness followed by a precise, unhurried question, doesn't just handle the moment. It redefines it. The room that was watching to see what you would do now sees something unexpected. Someone who is not rattled, not reactive, not desperate to smooth it over. Someone who is just quietly, completely in charge of themselves. That image stays with people long after the moment is over. Move 3. The permanent shift. Here's something I've never heard anyone else explain. Most people focus all their energy on the moment. What to say, how to say it. But the moment is not where you win or lose. The moment is just the opening move. Where you win or lose is in what happens next. Watch this pattern. Someone disrespects you. You handle it well. The moment passes. The room moves on. And then, slowly, things drift back to normal with that person. The conversation opens up. The warmth returns. Within a week, it's like nothing happened. And without realizing it, you just sent a message. You told them the cost of disrespecting you was about 7 days of slightly cooler energy before everything resets. That's not a cost. That's a subscription fee, and you just renewed it for them. Here's what you do instead. Let the shift be real. Not a scene, not an announcement, not a confrontation, just a quiet, genuine, permanent adjustment. You become measurably less available, not hostile, not visibly cold, just genuinely less open than you were before. The spontaneous conversation you would have had, it doesn't happen. The energy you used to bring into that relationship, it gets redirected. They'll notice. Not immediately, but they will. And when they do, something registers without you ever saying a word. They understand that what happened had a real cost, that you're not someone who performs standards and then abandons them when enforcement gets uncomfortable, that the version of you they had access to before was not a permanent feature. It was earned, and it can be lost. This isn't pettiness. This isn't bitterness. This is consistency. And consistency is the only thing that separates a real standard from a speech you gave once. Anyone can have a strong moment. The people who are genuinely respected are the ones whose strong moment was not a performance. It was a preview. Now I want to go deeper, because everything so far is technique, and technique matters. But underneath the technique is a question that actually determines whether any of this works. Do you actually believe your own standard is worth defending? Not in theory. Not when you're feeling strong and clear. In the moment when things get awkward. When the room might get tense. When holding the line means someone might pull away or think less of you. In that moment, do you actually believe it? Here's the hard truth. Most of us carry a quiet doubt, a background fear that if we enforce our limits, we'll end up more alone than we already feel, that if we make someone uncomfortable by refusing to absorb their behavior, we'll pay for it socially. So we absorb it, again and again, and we call it maturity, perspective, being above it. But what we're actually doing is trying to outrun a belief we've never directly confronted. The belief that our own dignity is negotiable, that it's something we can trade away for a smoother room or a less uncomfortable evening. Here's what that belief costs you, not just in the moments when someone disrespects you, in every room you walk into, because people don't just read your words, they read your frequency. They sense before you say anything, whether you actually mean what you project, whether the confidence is real or a performance, whether there's something underneath, or whether it falls apart under pressure. The people who carry genuine authority, The ones who almost never have to deal with disrespect aren't carrying better tactics. They're carrying a different belief. The belief that their standards are not situational, that they don't bend because the room gets uncomfortable, that their self-respect is not available for purchase at any price. And people feel that. Even before anything happens, it changes how they choose their words, how they consider what they're about to say. Whether testing this person is worth it. You build that belief the same way you build anything real, not by telling yourself you have it, by acting like you have it, when it costs you something to do so. Every time you hold your ground when part of you wants to fold, the belief becomes a little more real. Every time you let the shift be genuine, instead of drifting back to normal because it felt easier, the belief becomes a little more real. Every time you ask the question instead of swallowing the moment, the belief becomes a little more real. And slowly, without any announcement, the thing you were performing becomes the thing you actually are. Here's who you're building toward. Not someone aggressive, not cold or difficult or exhausting to be around. Someone settled. Someone who walks into a room and doesn't need anything from it. Doesn't need to be liked or validated or handled carefully. Just completely, quietly, at home in themselves. That kind of presence has a specific effect. It makes people more careful, not out of fear, but out of an instinctive respect they can't fully explain. Because when someone is genuinely settled, the usual social games just don't work. The tests don't produce the expected results. The jabs don't find purchase. The attempts to measure them come back with no useful information. And after a while, people simply stop trying. Not because you defeated them, because you became someone they didn't know how to approach that way. That's what you're building. A reputation that works for you before you even open your mouth. You don't build it by talking about your standards. You build it by living them consistently, when it's easy and when it's not. Every interaction is a small deposit, and those deposits compound over months and years into something nobody gave you and nobody can take from you. An understanding that moves through every room you enter before you do. That this is not someone whose limit is up for debate. That this is not someone who can be measured that way. That's not a thing you announce. It's a thing you become. So let me bring it all together. Next time someone disrespects you, and eventually someone will, here's what you do. First, go still. Not passive, not shut down. Completely, deliberately still. 3 seconds. One breath out longer than in. Gaze soft and steady. Let the silence carry the first message. Then, ask the question. Calm, unhurried, precise. That landed a certain way. Was that intentional? Or, help me understand that. Pull the moment into the light. After the moment passes, let the shift be real. Not announced, not performed, just genuine. Become measurably less available. Let them figure out why. And underneath it all, keep doing the deeper work. Keep building the belief that your standard is not situational, that your dignity is not for sale, that the version of you before the disrespect is not automatically the version they get to keep. Because the goal was never to win an argument, never to punish anyone or prove anything to a room. The goal is to become someone whose limit is so quietly, consistently real, that most people simply never test it in the first place, not because they're afraid of what you'll do, because they already know who you are. And that kind of respect, the kind that arrives before you speak and stays after you leave, is not something you demand. It's something you build. One moment at a time, one choice at a time, starting right now. Remember the person from the beginning? The one who already decided how far they could push you? After today, they're going to notice something changed. Not because you told them, because you became someone they can't read anymore. And the next time they consider testing you again, that same thought will land one more time. You just told me everything I need to know about you. That's the upgrade. And it starts the next time someone tests you. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Has someone already figured out your limit? Tell me your story in the comments. I read them. You already know what to do.